he never was like, you're going to do this.
Right.
The only reason I ended up doing it is because he wasn't like, you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He figured out a way how to get out of class so he could come and work at the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Always, when he wasn't working, was always searching for food, always searching for the best. And we had this magical call, and it's like, it's time for you to come home, and now we're going to do it together.
Welcome to the Blackberry Podcast, where we share stories, wisdom, and insight from the amazing people we get to meet and collaborate with here at Blackberry Farm. I'm Sarah Chabot.
And I'm Mary Celeste Beall. Welcome. We're thrilled to be joined today by Emeril and EJ Lagasse. A well-known culinary titan, Emeril is the James Beard Award-winning chef and restaurateur behind an incredible list of restaurants in New Orleans and Las Vegas. He's also a longtime beloved television personality who has hosted his own shows as well as been a judge for favorite cooking competition shows like Top Chef. EJ is the youngest 2-star Michelin chef ever and the chef co-owner of Emeril's in New Orleans and also Emeril's son. Welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having us.
It's such a
We're happy
treat
to
to
be
have
here.
y'all.
Thank you so much. It's
And
great to
oh
be
my
here.
gosh,
It's very flattering
I
intro.
knew that
appreciate
you
it.
were young, EJ, but holy cow, you're only 23?
Yeah.
Wow.
Youngest Michelin star chef in the world.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To both of you, because I feel like for you to want to follow in your dad's footsteps and to take this role in your family business is such a testament to you as his son, but also to the example he has set for you to want to follow. And I think that's amazing.
I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I think that's the biggest thing of it. You know, everybody's like, oh, it must be very stressful to work with each other. And like he and I kind of laugh because we're like, yeah, you know, we don't really feel that way. Like it just doesn't. That's not how we think about it, you know. And you've been so accepting of any of the sort of crazy ideas that I have, and it's so great for me as such a young chef to be able to have somebody who has, you know, been around the block, as they say, for as long as you have, and been able to. So that has been a real joy for me. Is like if I need to call somebody about something going on, or I need to talk to somebody, like the guy's next to me. You know what I mean? So that's been a real treat.
Not only is he next to you, but he's also your dad.
Yeah,
So he's got your best interest at heart, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and really,
We
you know,
make
I
a
think,
pretty good team.
yeah.
So
I was telling somebody the other week, it really just feels like it's very nice to know, you know, that there's absolutely one person that has your back. Like, you know, we have a great team and we have great guests and all that stuff, and they all tend to have our back. I mean, that's the way that it is, right? But it is really nice to have a definitive, like, well, I know he's got me. So
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing about your community in New Orleans as well.
absolutely.
I mean, I think the first time I met you, you immediately started sharing other restaurants in the
Oh, yeah.
city that we had to go to.
Yeah.
And I just love that energy about the community as
Well,
well.
New Orleans is constantly changing, but recently, particularly after COVID got settled, there's been an evolution in New Orleans with restaurants. It's probably since then maybe 70 new restaurants of all different levels that have
And
kind
of all
opened.
different cuisine types.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting now an abundance of different cultures, different cuisines. It's not just French, Spanish, and African American. It's Italian, Irish, Indian.
You're
It's
seeing everything.
right. All over the
Mexican,
place.
Senegalese. I mean, it's
Yes.
all of. So that's been a real treat, and I think that's why when we got together last and we were chatting about New Orleans, I mean, it's like the easiest thing to talk about in the world because one, everybody wants to go, everybody wants to be there. We certainly have a lot of fun there with our teams and have for 36 years.
Wow.
You know, but you know, New Orleans really is that place to be, and I think that it's in a couple of different categories that it's the place to be. I mean, the food is one thing, right? The food is just, we say it all the time. I think dollar for dollar, you can eat better in New Orleans than pretty much anywhere in the world.
No question about it.
But then you start going down the list, and it's like, okay, well, let's talk about music. I mean, come on.
Architecture.
Let's talk about the arts in general.
Right.
Let's talk about, you know, the people. So it's a really easy thing. We just kind of get to feel like these culinary ambassadors to the city, of which there's so many. But we kind of get to just go around when we aren't in the restaurant. We kind of just get to go around and talk about how great the place is. So it's, I mean, it's not a bad setup.
Yeah.
I want to get back to, and Mary Celeste definitely wants you to jump in here about why you guys are here. And you're here because we have this event called Passing the Torch, and it's literally all about sharing it with the next generation.
Well, I'll tell you, this is probably at least my third or fourth visit. We were just talking about this earlier. I think Sam wrote one visit completely off because I was with the McElhenney group and they were very bad in a good way. So I think Sam just kind of, he kind of scratched that one.
From the docket.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just out of the ledger.
But I think there's always been a connection with families and their family and our family and what our beliefs are as far as great food, great wine, great people equate to having a great time.
Yeah.
And I think the philosophies are the same. So that's certainly one of many reasons why that we're here, at least that I'm here. Sam was a special guy. We had a connection that we really like to make people excited about the whole experience. And that was Sam's belief and Mary Celeste's belief. Their open arms of hospitality into their home. And when I say that, I don't mean just their personal home, but I mean just the whole property. It's spectacular. I'm looking out the window right now as I'm sitting here and I'm looking at our chefs, both our chefs
and your chefs.
And they're forging mushrooms out there. They're
so great.
They're like picking chanterelles.
Just for fun.
Just an amazing place.
But I think, this place has always been a beacon of exemplary Southern hospitality at the highest level possible. I mean, at a Relais Chateau level. And for us, I think that to have a place like this, it's so important that our region has a place like this that isn't just a restaurant, that isn't just a farm, that isn't just a hotel, that isn't to have a thing that means a little bit more because of the people that have been here throughout the years, and the passing of that sort of baton as it goes, and we've always looked to it as sort of a North Star in that from the hospitality standpoint.
I'm at the New Orleans airport coming here yesterday. And it's quite early in the morning, and a client of ours at the restaurant, a very big client of ours actually, her husband actually is a lawyer, and she's like, "Where are you heading today?" And I'm like, "I'm heading to Blackberry Farms," and she goes, "Oh my God, that's on the top of my bucket list. I can't wait to go there. I've been telling Leon I've been wanting to go there." I'm like, "Well, where are you going?" She's like, "I'm going to Detroit." I'm like, "Oh, I'm glad you're going there, baby, because I'm going to Blackberry Farm."
Yeah.
But we were just talking about how people from Tokyo were coming to your restaurant, Emeril's in New Orleans, and that's
not just
special.
there though. It's just kind of like, since the whole Michelin. And that's a whole nother story. I got up this morning, of course, I'm reading the news, and Jacksonville, Florida just got reviewed, right? They just got 3 Michelin restaurants.
Not 3 Michelin stars,
No.
but
3 Michelin restaurants.
We like to distinguish.
Right, 3 Michelin restaurants.
So do I.
And I'm like, you know how long it took us in New Orleans to get Michelin? Yeah, it happens to do a lot with money, and obviously Florida has plenty of it. But they have restaurants reviewed from Miami to Tampa, now Jacksonville.
Yeah. Well, they've gone full state. I mean, now
Yeah.
Florida's full state. But it's so interesting for me because I think when you look at as Michelin came out in the South, right, in the American South, nobody really knew what was going to happen. That was the crazy thing.
Right.
Like,
Well, a
everybody's
lot
kinda
of people didn't know what Michelin was, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you have purveyors calling you that are like, "Man, it's crazy because it's July and like, it's a tough summer." But some of these restaurants that got Michelin rated in this town, Yeah, man, they're busier than they were last summer and this, that, and the other. And you're kind of like, well,
Right.
that's kind of the point,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
is a travel and tourism guide.
Right.
So,
It is.
you know, when
Selling tires
yeah,
is their goal.
exactly. I'm sitting there in the kitchen the other night, and this guy's like from this table of guys from Tokyo, and I go out and I'm like, hey, you know, welcome to New Orleans. Nice to have you guys. Anybody ever been to New Orleans before? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna show you what New Orleans is all about. And I'm like, just curious, like, what brought you guys here? And they're like, oh, well, we have a conference in Miami in 2 days, but we came here. We came through New
Mhm.
Orleans for 2 nights just because we wanted to eat at the restaurant. That's a pretty heavy, you know, thing. I mean, I called him and was like, man, this is
I
crazy.
mean, I live by the guide. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys, but I mean, I live by the guide. It's an app on my phone.
Mhm.
When I have customers that call and say, "Hey, I'm going to Milan. What do you recommend?"
Mhm.
It's the first thing I check out is I just go
Mhm.
on the
Yeah.
Michelin guide.
Mhm.
Then I go on La Liste and I, acquire. Maybe I have a file on it, maybe I don't. And then I say, well, these are the 3, 4 restaurants that I
Mhm.
would go. I think that a lot of people live by that. I remember the initial conversation that I had with the governor and the lieutenant governor and the great people uh,
New
at New
Orleans and
Orleans.
company.
Yeah, New
Well, because
Orleans.
they sort of came to you and they're like, hey, I think we're gonna do this Michelin thing. Like, I think we're gonna try to get. We've seen what happened in Florida and this, that, and the other. What's your opinion on it?
Mhm.
And we were all just kind of like, well, if it's gonna bring more people to the region as a
Mhm.
whole, because
That's
you know, then let's do it. Because when you're sat there and you're hearing about, you know, I think that like the Michelin's great for big cities, right? It always has been. It's been
Mhm.
great in New York and it's been great in Chicago for years. But like the whole reason that Michelin ends up going out to wine country,
Mhm.
you know, decades ago, and rating Napa and Yountville is because Thomas had the French Laundry out there, and it was a destination restaurant that people would fly into San Francisco and they would rent a car and they would drive out to the French Laundry, and you were at this like mecca of food, and you would have dinner and you would cry, and then you would go home. And that's like what I love about the fact that Michelin's done this and the way that they've done it is that if you are literally in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in you know in Alabama, you can be rated
Mhm.
by the guide, and it will bring people on their travels, whether they're driving, they're flying, they're you know whatever, they're coming to see you. So that's been very incredible. But you know, I mean, when you talk about some of these other sort of accreditations and accolades and things that the restaurants and hotels are able to get, you know, you think about Relais Chateau. That's certainly one that you know we're so proud to be a part of. I know that you guys are so proud to be a part of, and that's another one that I think that like when people who have never been to a region,
Mhm.
if they've never been here
Right.
and they say, well, I'm going to go to the South in the U.S. I want to see it. I live in, you know, wherever. I live in Amsterdam,
Mhm.
and I want to go to the South, and I'm going to hop around a little bit, and I've got a 1 week. You know, they spend 3 days with you guys.
Right.
Then they find their way down in New Orleans. They spend a night in New Orleans. They spend 2 nights in New Orleans. They come to eat at the restaurant. They go to eat at 2 other restaurants while they're there. You know, and then they head to Atlanta and they go do something in Atlanta, and they sort of get to see what our region
Mhm.
is sort of all about. And so I think that from a hospitality standpoint, certainly from a culinary standpoint, but you know, there's a great deal of responsibility in that because you're not just representing. I have no idea. I'm sure it's a wild number, but like, you know, we represent 85 people because we have 85 staff members at the restaurant,
Mhm.
85 team members.
For how many seats?
11 tables.
Yeah,
Okay.
11,
Wow.
11 tables. We never give a seat
I
answer.
like those ratios.
Yeah, we never give a seat answer because the tables are a little bit dynamic.
Yeah.
But we do 50 people a night for dinner. That's the maximum that we do.
Wow.
It's 50 people a night,
Mhm.
5 nights a week. So that's that, you know. And we have a large staff, but we feel a great. You know, it's so crazy, and not to like jump around,
Hey, we love it.
but
Jump all you want.
but you know when we hit our 36th anniversary last March,
I love hearing you say that. I guess it's
'cause
kind
I
of
wasn't
like
here.
me saying 50th because I'm not
Yeah,
that 50 yet. Holding on.
and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But it is like the responsibility that we
Yeah.
have, right? And so I got with some of our like employment lawyer people, and they were like, I was like, how many employees have we had in 36 years? I want the number. Give me a ballpark. So they came back to me like 2 days later, and they're like, it's somewhere around 1,300.
Wow.
So the way that I look at that, and we got that number because on our 36th anniversary, we got together with our front and back house team. We had an extra long pre-meal meeting that day. And we kind of just went on about how important it is that, there's 80 of you in here right now, but you're a part of a family that's been
Right.
1,300 some odd
Yeah.
people who've gone on to open restaurants, open their own hotels, open their own wine shops,
Right.
do all these things. And they're always going to be a little bit,
Mhm.
there's always going to be a little bit of Emerils in them,
Yeah.
much like the people that come through here.
Right.
There's always going to be a little bit of Blackberry
Mhm.
that's with them wherever they go. And there's going to be something that you guys did that they loved that gets carried on
Mhm.
into, and there's going to be something that they did at Emerils that they enjoyed doing on a daily
Right.
basis. And they're going to be like, oh, I loved that.
I mean, it's passing the torch
And it's passing
in
the
a
torch.
different
Yeah, well,
way.
you talk about those people like, that flew in from Tokyo or, flew in from Iowa. It's the same that I look at Blackberry Farms.
Yeah.
You can't like jump out of a parachute and like land here. You got to land in Knoxville. You got to drive 30 minutes ish.
Yeah.
But then when you come here to Paradise and you realize the incredible passion and quality of food and beverage, your wine program, we were talking about it at lunch today.
Don't
I
you guys
mean,
have like 120 something thousand bottles of wine under that thing?
Something around there.
yeah,
Like we have like 40,000, and we were like,
and
oh
we
my
and we
God, like I
like
can't even
and we
imagine.
know what that's like to
Yeah.
manage
I can't even
and to
imagine.
keep up. And then somebody at lunch today was saying, yeah, they have, I think, like 125,000 bottles, and I'm like looking at him and I'm like, okay, wow.
Well, no, he looked at me and he
let's
goes,
also talk
he
about
looked
that
at me and he goes, we got to buy more wine,
a
is what he said.
cellar in New Orleans is a different animal than a cellar here, just because of the
Well, you have
water table.
Yeah.
We got
well, you have a cellar.
Yeah. Yes.
Like you have,
Yeah.
we're like below sea
Yes,
level, so we
yes,
can't go that
yes,
way.
yes,
Yeah.
We have to go this
yeah,
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thing that we're in the warehouse. so
Okay,
shit, though.
going backwards a little bit, because I just love. I love the father-son relationship. It's so special. And it makes me sad. Sam's not here, but we're not going to dwell on that. But it is so beautiful to see that what y'all are doing together. At what point, EJ, because I do feel like a lot of sons feel pressure.
Sure.
I mean, I think daughters feel pressure too, but I think the father-son pressure is maybe different than the mother-daughter-son. At what point did you think, okay, I really want to do this and I really can do this?
Well, I lucked out because he never was like, you're going to do this.
Right.
And I think that the only reason I ended up doing it is because he wasn't like, you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He always said, you're going to learn how to cook. But
Mhm.
he used to say to me, it was really funny. I'd be like 8 years old. And he'd be like, you're going to know how to cook just so that you can cook for your friends and
Right.
your family.
Yep. Yeah.
Bottom line.
Right.
So, but that wasn't like, I mean, we're talking about cooking at home, right? We're not
Right.
talking about
Making
like gastronomic
jambalaya or
adventures,
something
right?
like that.
Yeah, but I would think cooking at your old house is
Yeah,
pretty
it's a lot of
awesome.
fun. I mean, it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun, right? And, I don't know many other kids who were sat there at 8 years old, like learning how to break a fish down for
Mm.
Yeah.
for cooking purposes,
Mhm.
right? So that was a big thing, I think, was that you were not so adamant about it. And then, I had a dinner at Cafe Beall. I was like 8 or 9 years old. Gavin Kaysen was the
Mhm.
chef.
Yep.
And I think that he, first of all, is just one of the greatest chefs in the country.
Mhm.
And you were shooting a cookbook at the time. And so the photographer of the cookbook, Steve Freeman, who was a family friend, was with us. And Gavin and I both have this picture. Gavin has it in the restaurant in Minneapolis, and I have one in the office at Emeril. But there's a picture of me, like 8 years old, and I'm on the pass at Cafe Beall, and Gavin's just handing me spoons of things to taste. And we had dinner, and I'll never forget it. We got served a pomegranate glazed duck with bok choy and sumac.
Mm.
And we got in the car at the end of the dinner, and I'm like 9 years old, and I was like, hey, so I want to cook for a living. That's what I want to do. And he laughs, and Mom laughs, and he's like, okay, sounds good, whatever. And then a couple of months went by, and I kind of kept just being like, hey, no, seriously, like, I really want to cook more.
But that's sort of remarkable at the age of 9. I mean, I think at the age of 9, I was like, I want like a game or
Yeah.
like I want to go to a camp or a concert. That's a lot of foresight.
Well, like I remember like I stole his credit card when I was like 11 years old. Like I like nicked it out of his wallet and ordered a bunch of like vintage cookbooks, antique cookbooks on eBay. Like I'd figured out how to use eBay, and I was like, oh man, I bought like $300 worth of cookbooks, and he's like, what? you know, and all these cookbooks showed up, and like that was what I loved as a kid. We would talk a lot about food. We were always going out to, fish markets and farmers markets and looking at produce and looking at what was available and like how to, I was 10 years old learning how to like concasse tomatoes for, a fish dish and things like that, just because that's what we bonded a lot over. He was very, very busy when I was a kid. If he wasn't in the restaurant and had taken a couple of weeks off from the restaurant, well, he happened to be filming Food Network. So that was really, we split time between New Orleans and in New York. I went to school in both places. And he would be, if not shooting on a Sunday and the restaurant was shut on a Sunday, or he wasn't working on a Sunday, we were cooking at home. And, I hung out a lot in green rooms at Food Network studios, and I hung out a lot in chefs' offices at Emeril's. And I grew up, eating that food and cooking that food and being in the restaurant there. So when it got time to talk about, which is really something that he and I, and it sounds so silly because of my age, but like he and I have probably been talking about the ideal version of Emeril's for 10 years. I remember being 13, 14 years old and sitting at some grand restaurant somewhere and being like, isn't this what you wanted Emeril's to feel like? I remember specifically sitting at Le Bernardin, and I ended up working there for 2 years with Chef Repair, but I remember sitting, I think that was your birthday, at Le Bernardin. And we went for dinner. And you could just, he's my dad. I could just kind of tell that he was just sitting there, like looking around, being like, Emeril's should be like this. I opened it to be like this. Because of all the pressures of the business, right? Like the restaurant celebrates its 18th anniversary during the financial crisis, you know? So like, there's all these things that happen. Katrina happens, financial crisis happens right after it, all that stuff. So the restaurant just kind of naturally went a different way. But he opened the restaurant to be a white tablecloth restaurant that represented New Orleans. And he and I would be sat in New York when he would be off of filming and I would be off of school, and we would be sat in New York, and because we wanted to go to these grandiose restaurants, and he'd want to bring me there for me to experience it. So, for instance, it would be near Thanksgiving, and we would be at like Per Se. I'm the luckiest kid in the world to be running around Per Se at 11 years old. And somebody from New Orleans, somebody that we knew from New Orleans, would be in the dining room at Per Se celebrating their birthday, and come up and, oh, Emeril, great to see you. We've got reservations next Thursday. It's Susie's birthday. That's why we're here. And he and I just kind of always said to each other, like, why do they have to go to New York?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't we provide the restaurant for New Orleanians to go and have the type of experience? Not saying that we're trying to cook better than anybody in New Orleans or present the dining room better than anybody in New Orleans. That wasn't it. It was, why can't there be all these restaurants in New Orleans that go and represent New Orleans kind of on that global scale, to where maybe one day we end up where there's this guy from Tokyo coming to eat, before he goes to this thing in Miami.
Except for the fact that now your loyal New Orleans guests have to be in line with the Tokyo.
Well, we got the
I'm
special
saying,
reso.
like, how do the locals get the reservations too if everyone is fighting? That's such a challenge for a restaurant that has gotten a Michelin.
I think they know now that reservations go 30 days.
60
days in advance.
Yeah.
And on that first day of the month, reservations go for the next.
I will also say, a lot of the guests that have been coming to the restaurant, and I don't mean like 50 of them, I'm talking about like 1,000 people that have been coming to the restaurant for either them or their parents have been coming to the restaurant for all 36 years the restaurant's been open. they also know how to get a hold of us,
Yes.
right? I mean, like that.
But at the
Right.
same time, you can't make another table.
No, it
I
doesn't
mean,
appear, but
It's just like
No.
we can't create another bedroom.
no, you know,
And that's been a hard.
That's a
That's
tricky
been a hard.
piece.
That's been a hard thing is
yeah,
having those local people understand that they maybe had been so used to just calling last minute
Right.
that can't happen now.
Yeah.
yeah. But
It's
now
like,
what we get, and we appreciate it because they've adapted with us. They've
Yeah.
they've understood it with
Right.
us.
Yeah.
They'll reach out, you know, in August and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're trying to come in October.
Yeah.
We know the resos aren't
Right.
open yet."
Yeah.
And the resos aren't open, so
Yeah.
I can say, "Okay, well, I'm just going to
Yeah.
put a placeholder
Right.
in while we're waiting."
Right.
So that's where we've been able to do that a lot, you know, which
Yeah.
has been great. The other beautiful thing is that in what we decided to do with Emeril's, we opened a second restaurant.
Right.
Because we opened the wine bar, which is
Yeah.
the sister restaurant to Emeril's. It's its
Same
own
building.
kitchen. Yeah,
but
it's its own kitchen. So, you know,
Same access to that 40,000 bottles.
same access
Well,
to
right.
40,000 bottles.
and that's where you can order a la carte. So
Right.
you can have the gumbo and barbecue shrimp and fun
Right.
dishes in the wine bar. Experience the same grand award
So,
wine list.
so Emeril's is 800 Chapatula Street.
Right.
And the wine bar is 334 Julia Street. So it's literally the next door address. So
Yeah.
the Julia Street side of the restaurant is the wine bar.
Right.
And the Chapatula side of the restaurant is Emeril's.
So, you know, I remember, you know, Charlie Trotter and I were great friends, no secret. And we would fax each other on the weekends, his menu, my menu, what we were
I
doing
still
with
have the
each
fax
other.
machine.
You know, I would say, Charlie, you know, I want to change the restaurant, but I can't. I had done verbal tasting menus since I was at Commander's Palace,
Yeah.
and that clientele when I opened Emerald's in 1990 came over, so I was still doing verbal tasting menus.
Yeah.
To the point of being some nights would be 30, 40, 50 of those verbal tasting menus. We had the a la carte menu, and Charlie would be like, why don't you just change it now? And I said, Charlie, I can't. And he and we began, you know, obviously talking about that. So finally, when he was in Europe and he had like about finished his training, he worked in Sweden at Franzen, he worked at Core and et cetera, et cetera. I called him and I said, okay, it's time to come home. And now we're going to do really what I've been wanting to do for all of these years. And you and I have been talking about it.
Yeah.
He came back, got a lay of the land for about 6 months or whatever, closed the restaurant,
We renovated.
completely gutted the restaurant.
Like to the brick. Like there was nothing. We purposely got with the architects, and we kept very intentionally certain parts of the facades of different things. But as much as we could, we wanted people to walk in and go, okay, I see how this is Emerald's, but wow, it's quite different.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
There was still the bones.
there were still the
Yeah.
bones, and it's still.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at a picture from 1991 to then the renovation in '99, but you hadn't renovated. I mean, you did some touch-up stuff in after Katrina, but they had not fully renovated the building since 1999.
Yeah.
So we were, I mean, what is that? 21 years or
Yeah.
something. I mean, like, you know. So we got together and when we kind of wanted to look at all of the different aspects of it and see what we could change structurally.
Mhm.
You know, one of the big things was, well, I told him, I said, I want to bring everybody into the kitchen. He's like, what? Because he had a chef's table that would sit in the kitchen. But the thing about that is it was only one table.
Yeah,
Mhm.
4 guests.
So 4
Mhm.
people a night got to have the time of their life hanging out in
Mhm.
the kitchen,
Right.
listening to him, you know,
Yeah.
ramble. And I was kind of like, I think it'd be really cool if one, everybody can see. If we move this wall up and we curve this wall,
Mhm.
if every table in the dining room has a view of the kitchen.
Mhm.
So it does. There's a 40-foot piece of glass that's got a curve to it. You can see the whole kitchen. You can't hear it, but you can see the whole kitchen. And then the other thing that I want to do is let's bring everybody back into the kitchen. So we built this area in the kitchen where you come back and it's a display of the ingredients and you're in the middle of it. You're in the middle of the kitchen.
What we call the podium.
Yeah.
Mm.
You get your first bite there.
Yeah.
You get escorted by one of the cooks. They come to your table to get you. You're brought back to the podium. You have your first bite waiting there for you.
It's a lot of
You
fun.
get explained all of the ingredients that the farmers, the fishermen,
And
etc.
everything's raw. So
Right.
all of the raw produce used on the menu for that night, from the crab and the caviar and the shrimp and I mean, everything, left to right, first course to dessert, sits on the
You
podium.
see it.
Greeted by the kitchen, the
Yeah.
entire kitchen, explained by one of the cooks, escorted by one of the cooks back to the table.
And then the meal starts.
You get to the table, and there are 3 cold canapes waiting for you. You begin to start enjoying that with your wine or champagne, and all of a sudden, 3 more hot canapes come out. So now you've already had 7 bites,
Mm-hmm.
and then the meal begins.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, it's a great those were a couple of those things that, before the renovation, we had 2 tasting menus and an a la carte menu, and I was just like, hey, this is a lot.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
a lot
it's
to
like
manage.
30. It was like
Yeah.
39 dishes
Right.
on the menu, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I just don't know if we can keep the standard that we
Yeah.
want doing as much. So we had a great conversation while we were closed, and we didn't decide until about 3 weeks before we reopened that we were only going to do one menu,
Wow.
and that was the thing. Well, it's just going to be tasting menu. So then I spent 2 weeks really, really working with him to develop the wine bar and the sister restaurant, to expand the options there and really turn that into its own restaurant. And we've had a lot of fun with that, because that's like the stuff that we want to eat when we're not working in the
Mhm.
restaurant.
Yeah.
And there's no limit to that. And we all have different ideas, and that's the one where like it's like the community message board of like, this is what we're gonna, like our CDC is like, why don't we do a duck taco? I'm like, okay, great, duck tacos
Yeah.
in the
we
wine bar.
get we
I
get
love it,
here we get here yesterday. All of us on the journey. We arrive at Blackberry, and it's finally, I guess, that we could all just take a breath of fresh air. He and Emily hadn't slept because they were at the
We came
restaurant.
straight from dinner service.
From service. So we finally have a glass of wine, and we're like just together. And what's the subject?
What the wine bar
Okay,
menu is
what?
gonna change
How
to.
are we gonna change the wine bar menu?
So we're sat there, and like, you guys had that great little Fennel popcorn in the
Uh-huh.
main house. And we're sat there, and I'm like, oh, the popcorn. I'm like, yes. I've been trying to do a popcorn. We need
We
to
have
do
a
a popcorn.
great Wagyu beef
Yeah,
fried rice.
yeah.
That's very, very popular at the wine bar. One of my favorites, he wants to change it, but one of my favorite dishes is this
We're not gonna
brick chicken.
Yeah, we're not going to change it.
So you get that. You can have barbecue shrimp, French onion dip with, I mean,
So that's been a different.
you can't
How
take
many
the,
seats in the wine bar?
So the wine bar will do
Mhm.
about 60 of its own covers, 60 to 75.
right,
But not
Fort-
all of them are eating
Yeah,
full meals, right? Like that's
yeah.
what the fun bit of the wine bar is you
40
get a lot of
40 seats.
Yeah, you get a lot of people who pop in and have a glass of wine and a foie gras torchon after
Yeah.
work,
So
and then they
it's
go
Right.
home. Or
Best kept secret for local
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
Orleanians is the wine bar.
and it's predominantly walk-in only. We reserve a couple of tables that are available on Resi, but everything else is
Yeah.
predominantly walk-in. So that's been a real joy for us, because that sort of happened on accident. We sort of created this sister restaurant
Right.
on accident.
And
I
then
mean-
we created its own line.
Yeah, and then we were like, we went to the architects. And we're like, hey, so we know we open in 3 weeks, but
We need
that
its own
whole
line.
area over there, rip it out. And they were like, what? We just put it there. And we're like, no, it needs to be a separate kitchen. They're like, you need 2 kitchens? Like, this kitchen's great. We're like, no. It has to be separate.
Yeah.
So it's entirely separate, and it's a separate team. It's cross-checked,
right.
right? We have a sous chef that's over it, but
One of our really, really special gifts to each other and to the restaurant was we had this custom green Maltini stove that was built for us. So we have this sweet kitchen Maltini stove that's just
yeah,
it was badass.
it was pretty great. I called Michael Poulos, who runs Maltini for North America, and I said, can you come down to New Orleans and have a chat with us? And we just closed the restaurant for a renovation, and I'd like to start talking about something. And he's like, yeah, sure. So he came down, and I like drew on a sketch pad. I was like, this is the stove I
It
need.
was a napkin.
It was a napkin at a coffee shop. I have it in the restaurant. It's framed.
Love
Yeah.
it.
but it's like this stove drawn out, and I drew a little like stick figure next to it, and I was like, for scale. And he was like, okay, sounds good. And then like 3 weeks later, he sent us a rendering, like a CAD rendering of it, and I was like, I mean, well, I guess now we got to do that. So
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, it's like cooking, and it's like the Rolls Royce of stoves.
Right.
I mean, it really is. I mean, you just like, it's like cooking on, I don't know how to describe it. We have guest chefs that come and hang out at the restaurant and do dinners with us, and they're just like, Enrique Oliveira came a couple of weeks ago, and he posted on Instagram, and it was like, at EJ Lagasse, thanks for letting me drive your Ferrari. And I just like died laughing. I mean, like, it's so funny, right? And so there were all those little moments of the chats together, doing it together, talking about it, talking it through, about what we wanted it to feel like. And one of the great kept secrets about Emeril Lagasse is that he's a hoarder of information. The guy will throw anything else out. He doesn't keep clothes or anything like that. But when it comes to archival content from Emerils, that guy can pull out a menu from September 19th in 1992 and has it. And like, here it is in the filing cabinet. Here you go. Has everything. So I've had to become a great archivist in the same way to try to preserve that as well. But he had all of that.
But for your 50th anniversary, you are set.
Oh,
Yes,
we're good,
so
man.
you're ready.
Whatever book we put out for that, we're set. So, but we were able to use a lot of that content specifically together in the test kitchen with the team, because we could go back and like, one of the dishes I wanted to bring back was oyster stew. Now that was a dish that hadn't been on the Emeril's menu in 10 years. But I had the original recipe that he used that ended up in his first cookbook on page 5. And I'm like, hey, guys, this recipe is amazing. Let's make it. And we're like, yeah, we're not changing that. Like, there's nothing to do there.
Yeah.
So oyster stew's back, and this is back, and here's the deal.
We can't take it off the menu.
And now it's
There's no way.
become.
I love oyster stew. My
It's
grandmother
oyster
used
so
to
stew,
make the
and
best.
it has. Okay, so EJ added this component of tapioca, which people out there may go, tapioca, that's a little strange. The whole texture
Right.
of how it's made in that sauce, and then that flavor of Pernod.
Well, the
or
herb saint.
Saint.
Yeah, herb saint.
Okay, we use herb saint, which is a very New Orleans,
Right.
same kind of, and perfectly cooked oysters, and then topped with this foie gras, this seared foie gras, and then this sauce on the side, which is like,
No, it's herb saint cream. I mean, it is the original sauce of the dish, so it
Me.
hasn't changed.
yeah.
So yeah, it looks a little bit different, and we've changed sort of the technique that is, but the flavor's the same. So like, one of our great guests came in the first week that we were back from the renovation, and I put the oyster stew in front of him. He's like, "This is oyster stew," and I'm like, "Close your eyes." So he literally goes like this, and he takes a bite of it, and then he asks for a second one. I'm like, "Okay, so we're fine."
Yeah, a
And
second
a
one.
second one
You
in a
gotta,
tasting menu.
I mean, I will say we went through a stretch when we opened the barn,
yeah.
and we had some longtime guests that were like, no,
Yeah.
we don't want this. We don't want the barn. We love the main house. We do not want you to do this. And we're like, well, we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
So give it a chance. And now they love it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, sometimes
people don't like change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's human nature to not like
Especially
change.
here,
Yeah.
I can see, especially in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They're so spoiled about what they've had for many, many
Yeah.
years. Going to grandma's house and having the best gumbo that you can imagine, or red beans and rice, or going to Cafe Du Monde and having the beignets that
Right.
haven't changed, right?
For 150
They
years.
they don't want change.
Yeah.
They want to go to Parkway or Domalisi's, and they don't want the poor boy to have change.
right.
So so we kind of sat there, and you said, how do you we're going to change a lot of stuff, but we're going to keep the integrity of it
Right.
the
The
exact same.
backbone.
But
Yeah.
having the bar enables you, the bar to me sounds like it takes pressure off
It gives us a lot, Mary
because
Celeste. It gives
you
us
can have the go-tos
it gives us
and
a
you
lot
can
of
be more
flexibility.
creative
Yeah.
next door. Okay, backing up or going sideways, whatever, different direction is we've been sitting here for 30 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Your dad
Seems
is
like yesterday.
so good at listening to you. And I just want to hear from your dad. At what point did you say, okay, he wants to do this? Because in your head, or how did you,
What you're saying is, at one point
how did
did
you
I?
not screw this up, Emeril?
Yeah. At one point, when do you take over the baton?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it comes from understanding how he grew up in the business and what he experienced.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to high school, I had a restaurant in Destin, Emeril's Coastal, and then Emeril's Italian, then Emeril's Coastal. So he would, he figured out a way how to get out of class like fairly early in the day so he could come and work at the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So he had this incredible foundation. And then he and I had this agreement that you got to leave the nest.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to leave the nest. So he went and spent 2 summers with Eric Repair at Le Bernardin. I'm proud to say that Eric's like his second father. They're very close. They talk at least once a week. From there, he said, listen, I want to go to culinary school. I want to go where you went. He went to Providence, moved to Providence. He kind of aced that quickly. And then, he was at a point in his life where he didn't really have any personal responsibilities other than building his career.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, hey, Dad, listen, Mom, I found a place on my own. I'm moving to London. He moved to London, and all of a sudden he has this job at Core, working for this lady by the name of Claire Smith.
Amazing chef.
Badass chef.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, just amazing. She took a liking to him and offered him a job, but he didn't want to make that commitment
Mm-hmm.
of time.
Right.
He and the chef, Johnny Bones is his name, they just really kind of understood EJ and liked where he was going. And so they directed him to go to Franzen in Sweden. Came back to London. He always when he wasn't working was always searching for food, always
Mm-hmm.
searching for the best. And then that's when we had this magical call, and it's like, it's time for you to come home, and now we're going to do it together.
You know what I love is imagining. I do think you learn so much just by watching and doing. It's both. It's
Yeah.
seeing how someone does things, but it's also doing it hands on. And I can imagine that your life revolves around food. I mean, are you a golfer, or
Mm-mm.
do you have a sport? I mean, I know you love to fish, or you still love to fish, but so I'm imagining that when you were home, you to relax was cooking, being in the kitchen
Correct.
and cooking for your family. And so for y'all to connect, that was like y'all's hobby and activity
Yeah.
together,
Or
which is
or
so
shopping.
much.
Or
Or
shopping for
or
food.
for the food.
shopping for food, right? I mean, and so it seems so natural, but also such a gift that EJ enjoys it. I mean,
Yeah.
because he could have been like, oh my gosh, you're obsessed with food. I want to play video games. I mean,
Yep.
but so
Easily.
he just was your little protege.
Yeah,
He is.
we're having this conversation at lunch today here, and these 2 other couples, and we're talking about shopping,
Mm.
and they were like, "Yeah, um, she can't understand why I just don't go to the grocery store and shop for the whole week." And I remember my mom and dad; they went to the grocery store and shopped for the whole week.
Right.
We can't
Yeah, no.
we can't do that.
No.
No, because like you buy something at the store and then you're like, well, Thursday I don't really feel like cooking that.
Right.
I'd rather do.
I gotta feel it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of it. I mean, and cooking at home is so different from restaurant cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's actually a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
freeing because you can, if you want to cook Thai food, you can cook Thai food at home,
Right.
but you can't go into Emeril's and go cook Thai food.
Right.
So there's a different type of itch that
Yeah.
kind of has to get scratched.
Yeah.
But then you're cooking at home and you sat there and you're doing whatever and you're like, that'd be really nice if I had my knives right now.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of sat there and you're like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I started bringing knives home on the weekend. He
Well,
laughs at me
I
about
mean,
that.
I have to say this, and I am next week, I'm going to find this cookbook. But I searched today and I looked a few months ago too and still can't find it. One of Sam's favorite recipes when he was like 19. I mean, 20. Had not been cooking. I mean, he'd been cooking since he was, in his teens, but he wasn't, entertaining a ton of friends and stuff. Was this tuna recipe from you because he loved fishing, loved fresh fish, loved tuna, and it was this recipe with some rub, all your magic,
Okay.
some rub, and then it had olives. It was like a
Oh,
tuna.
Portuguese tuna.
It
Was it tomato and olives with the tuna?
Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yeah, tuna and Portuguese sauce.
Yeah.
That's in
and
the
then
first book.
I think he would do eggplant mashed potatoes
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was trying to find it because I wanted to show
Yeah,
it
it's
to
in
you
it's in New Orleans Cooking.
Okay,
It's
I
in
gotta
the
find it.
it's in Emeril Lagasse New Orleans Cooking with Marcel Benvenu. That's
Yeah, and
and Jess Trish.
there's an updated version of that on emeralds.com.
Okay.
Yeah. From the Essential Emerald book, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, I wanted to find it because I'm sure it has lots of sauce stains and is totally. You know how
I'm
there's
sure.
a page that
yeah,
it's
yeah,
your
I'm
favorite,
sure.
and you're like, the cookbook just naturally
Yeah,
opens
it's
to
in.
it because
There's
it's the one.
him on the front. The picture on the front is him with a bunch of shrimp, and he's like throwing them in the air.
Yep.
So that's New Orleans Cooking,
Okay.
and it's in the fish section.
Okay.
EJ,
Yeah.
are you still a big cookbook purchaser?
Yeah, I'm wild.
Yeah.
And I have buddies that like chef friends that are big cookbook guys,
Mhm.
and I call them like page 80.
I think it's a very
Love it.
important, being a good cook, it's very important to read, very important to travel to experience, no matter where that might be. You might be able to afford to go to another country, but if you don't, you may go to the next city. But I think it's important and I think it's important to have a mentor.
Yeah, the cookbook side of it though, I think is like I was talking to one of our cooks our fish cook at the restaurant the other day, and he's from Jackson, Mississippi, and he's laughing with me. And he's like, "Well, there's no 3-star kitchen in Jackson, So I'm like, "Well, what did you do to He's like, "Oh, I would spend money that I would save up, and I would buy the Toigo cookbook, and I'd read about the 3-star restaurant in France." Or I'd buy the 11 Madison Park cookbook and read about what Daniel Hum's doing over there. If you can't go to those restaurants, nobody can go to them all the time.
Right.
And if you can't go to those restaurants, as a cook, the way to sort of it's almost like staging in the kitchen when you but like, I don't mean like pick up, there's a difference. There's a difference of like picking up the cookbook and flipping through it.
No, it's
and like, I like this book. This is like you started at page 3.
Yes.
You finished the book. You read. Maybe you don't read all the recipes in the back in the index, but like you read the cookbook because in it Daniel Hum talks about why the turbot dish is on the menu or why the sturgeon dish is on the menu. And in the Toigo book they talk about sauce making, and it's in French, and you got to sit there and be like, that's super important. Reading a cookbook isn't just like, okay, I'm going to look through this and whatever. You want to read it because, you can look at the Thomas Keller French Laundry
cookbook. It's not about
cookbook.
flipping pages.
No.
It's interesting because my mother-in-law, part of how Blackberry became Blackberry from the Beall family is that she fell in love with cooking. She took these classes. She learned these 5-course dinners that she was making every week, 3 times a week, same menu. She'd learn the menu on Monday. Then she would cook it for friends Tuesday, Thursday. And my father-in-law, Sandy, was like, if you're going to do this every week, why don't we have a bed and breakfast? But she went through a phase for years where she would go to bed with a stack of cookbooks. I mean, she was reading cookbooks like a maniac.
Ella Brennan was the same way. Ella Brennan couldn't boil water, but she read like no one that I ever knew read. And she would always be like, you read a cookbook from the first page to the last page.
Yeah, you don't just.
And
you
then
don't
once
just
you
go through it.
understand it, then it's easy to.
Yeah, because it's
Mhm.
almost like interning in that chef's kitchen, right? It's
Mhm.
almost like doing that.
You can also go on YouTube and learn anything that you
Or
possibly
Instagram
want.
or
Right,
any of those
Mhm.
things.
But I think there's something to publishing a book because you're like a chef is putting its very best his or her very best work into it, and there's some a finality about it, like the head notes at the front of the recipe. This is my philosophy, and this is going to be there. Where
Mhm.
it's a little easy to like pop a video up on
Yeah.
YouTube
Mhm.
or
Well,
Instagram.
like, I'm so thankful that he published the cookbooks that he did about the restaurant in the early days. You can read a
Right.
lot about the philosophy of Emeril's and
Mhm.
why Emeril's was opened
hmm
in the first 5 chapters of New Orleans Cooking that he put out in
Mhm.
92.
92.
So that's 2 years of experience in the restaurant that he writes about
Mhm.
in that book, you know. And you go and you look at a dish that we eat every day in the restaurant and you're like, why did that end up on the menu? Well, here's a 6-paragraph
Mhm.
explanation in 92
Right.
of why it was on the menu 2 years before.
I mean, we have just finished a book about the first 50
Yeah,
years of Blackberry.
amazing.
But I feel like what is special about a book is that it gives everything context.
Yeah.
You're reading the story how it's intended to be heard versus finding some YouTube video, which I mean, I certainly love watching
Yeah.
a video, but you get the context, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just think that they're so special. There's no other type of medium from a book standpoint, in my opinion, that are more interesting than a cookbook as a chef because you can read like the biography type books and things like that and write like Kitchen Confidential, as great as it is, and all those things, right? But there's nothing like reading a restaurant's cookbook,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so inspirational. Like I have pictures on my phone. We have had experiences with our team, right? We're very friendly with a lot of chefs, as you guys are. Chefs send us their new books.
Mhm.
There's that moment where you get the book and you crack the plastic on it, or you take the soft cover off, and you're with your team and you're like flipping through it for the first time, and you open a dish and you're like, oh, like
Yep.
wow, look at that. Or you've seen a dish, right? This happened to me. Like you hear about a dish at a restaurant, then the chef comes out with a cookbook. Or you've had the dish at a restaurant, the chef comes out with a cookbook, and you're like, wow, I can't believe they put this one in the book.
Yeah.
Because you're
Right.
like, that seems like a
Yeah.
little bit like the magician revealing his secrets. I
Right.
quite like this. And you look at it and you're like, wow,
Well,
wow.
I'm sure Emeril's like perspective on food has changed dramatically since 1992, but a lot of it has also stayed the same. And it's fun to see that snapshot in time, you know.
I think a lot of it is the product, that has remained the same, but has evolved to be better. So, I started this farm cooperative in 1984 that we're still using some of the same farmers today, and he's built on new farmers that are growing or raising stuff for us. If you have great ingredients, you're going to have great cuisine. Yes, you can screw it up, with technique and
Trying to do too much.
right, trying to
Mhm.
do too much and not keeping the simplicity of what that ingredient is. But for me, I'm still ingredient driven. Whether it's getting that piece of tuna, or beautiful red snapper, or whether it's the duck that's being raised for us at the
Mhm.
restaurant.
This leads me to something I've been dying to ask is I grew up in Mobile, Alabama on the Mobile Bay. Um, and I mean, what is the state? And now I live in Tennessee, so I'm out of touch with the fishermen and everything. I mean, what's the state of the fishermen that are you still using some of the same people? Do you feel like you've got
Oh,
good
very much
sources?
so. Very much so. I think, I live in two hot spots when it comes to seafood, particularly fish, seafood in general. I live in Santa Rosa Beach, Destin, probably the fishing capital of the world, at least in the United States. And then I live in New Orleans, where it's influenced not only by the bayou, but by the Gulf and very special spots like Grand Isle, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. I think in those areas and surrounding the Gulf, in those areas, fishing is thriving.
There's been a lot of conservation efforts, though.
Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
From wildlife and fisheries, both in Louisiana and
Mm-hmm.
both in Florida.
As we start to kind of get to the end of our conversation, I have a question different for each of you. Emeril, I want you to share your thoughts about what young chefs can do for their career today. And then, EJ, what are your thoughts about what more mature chefs can do for either their career or their the community?
Well, I think for young chefs today, it's years ago it was all about resume building. Is how many people I can work for to put on my resume that was going to make me a better chef. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in heart and soul and passion. I think that you need to find a mentor. I think that you need to spend time with he or she. I think that you need to suck as much knowledge as you possibly can out of that mentor and lay the most strongest foundation that you possibly can. Because without a strong foundation, you're not going to build a house.
Mm.
So you're not going to have a first floor or second floor if you don't have a strong foundation. These young people today, you know, a lot of them want to come out of culinary school. They want to be the next Guy Fieri right away.
Mhm.
It doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of time, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge to pass that on. If you want to be true to the art, if you want to be true to the art, there's a lot of people out there that are not true to the art, that are just getting by. God bless. That's certainly not me. That's certainly not my philosophy. So I believe that knowledge is power, knowledge is strength, and I think that young people need to acquire as much knowledge as they possibly can, whether it's by a mentor or by reading or by experiencing food on its own.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, EJ, now what are your thoughts for the older generation?
I think much in the same vein of what he said. I think that one of the greatest things that I've been able to watch in my dad, and something that he and I talk about quite a lot, is that you don't stop learning. You can't stop learning. And so I think that as much as it's great to prompt the next generation of cooks, myself included, to continue to keep learning and always be a sponge and try to soak up as much as you can. I think my advice to anybody, and it's really funny because I get put in a very interesting position where a lot of the people that I'm in charge of are older than I am. We always talk about how it doesn't matter your age, whether you're young or old. You need to be able to have an open mind and an open ear to take on as much information as you possibly can. So that would be my thing, is just always be curious and never really stop having that desire to know more, because cooking is a craft. It's not, there's no final exam, there's no you figured it all out, Einstein. There is none of that. It doesn't work like that. You can have spent 50 years in a kitchen and know a third of a third of a third of what's out there. There's hilarious examples of that online, of like great chefs going and cooking in some other country and doing something and like not being able to do it, right? Because it's just the way that it is. It's a very there's an infinite amount of possibilities when it comes to cooking. So explore it. It's a life's work to go and explore that, So it's a lot of fun, and keep doing it. That's that. Just keep learning.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have both of you here. I know people can just quickly Google or jump on Instagram and find Emeril's. So we'll leave that to them. But if there's any place you want to point them today, obviously your Instagram is EJ.
Yeah, just EJ Lagasse. But yeah, I guess we'll point them to the same spot we've been pointing people for 36 years. So we'll see you in New Orleans.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
It's been a blast. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for your hospitality.